Hello, everybody. Happy
Oh, yeah,
Friday.
it's showtime. I love that we get a little thing that says it's showtime.
Yes, we're getting better. We are getting better at following the prompts. So, uh, how are you, Karen?
I am doing very well. How about you?
I am all right. As we were chatting beforehand, this is the busy season of Murphy child birthdays. First one was down yesterday, two more to go this month. So, it's
Yeah.
surviving all of that.
Yes. Yes. Well, it's a fun season. I mean, at least
It
that's
is.
that's fun, you know. So
We went out to dinner last night for my daughter's birthday, small town near us, and it was decorated for Christmas, which I'm
yeah.
not quite sure. It's like, hey, can we get through Thanksgiving?
No.
Oh,
No.
no, no. Okay.
Trying to. No, we cannot.
There we go. It's time. Just
It's
embrace it.
time.
It's time. All right. Then next week I'll wear a tacky Christmas sweater every
Yeah. That's right. We'll just start like ugly. We'll have like an ugly Christmas sweater,
maybe
episode
we
or something
should.
starting next week. That's
All right. But we got some other stuff to talk about besides ugly Christmas
We
sweaters.
really do. We really do. So for those of you who were with us last week, you remember we gave you homework because that's how we roll, right? Letty
Yep.
and I are
Yep.
so obsessed with content that we're like, and you're going to come along for that ride. So we asked y'all to pay attention to that. If you were paying attention to the Botgate series that Echo MR was putting out, they also had a panel discussion. We shared that in our links.
Yes.
So Lenny, why don't you bring everybody up to speed on the discussion since you participated in it and who was there and what y'all talked about?
Yeah, so shout out to Jay Ty and Kerry Hecht, Echo MR, for putting that together. Obviously, they were doing the Bachgate
Series.
expose series, and they decided that need to have a panel discussion. It was Liz Hazarek, AJ Kieran's, and Sarah Henn, moderated, and myself, moderated by Kerry. And we were just talking about the implications of this whole thing. In a nutshell, if you had not listened to the Bachgate series, they discovered an operator of a bot farm, and they did an interview with him, and they were breaking that up into a series. And the key takeaway is we've known there's a sample quality issue. We're from every signal I'm getting from conversations every day with folks in the industry, it is a serious issue. We can even call it a crisis. And we got more under the hood on what was causing that. And there's a whole sub industry that drives fraud.
I think the best moment for me watching this panel discussion, of course, I had also tracked, the theories, but was actually when you said, giving it the persona of Moss, who was the subject of Jay's interviews, made it very human. And you used the phrase like it was like a punch in the gut to see this very likable guy talking about the, dirty-handed actions in the industry, and it's like, no, wait a minute, I actually like this guy, and not only is he human, but he's kind of friendly. And it was anyway. That was like my favorite moment in the panel discussion because I was like, yes, I had that same reaction when I was viewing it.
Yeah, it was just a job, and I think that's actually. I don't want to dive too much into it. You guys, you really should listen to it. Listen to the Botgate, listen to the panel conversation. I'd probably talk too much in it, but the this is a guy from South Africa whose parents wanted him to go to a good school in China, and he needed a job. And he found a job managing this because there was a need, right? There was and the people who participate it's a monetization opportunity.
Yeah.
So we may feel lots of ethical and moral challenges around all of this and condemnation, and as we should. I'm not excusing it, but let's also recognize that as anything, look at the criminal underworld, right? They are filling a need in the ecosystem, as bad as that may be, and they are paying their bills in some form or fashion. That's the way the world works. And if we're going to fix this issue, we have to address the technological issues. We have to address the engagement issues with our supply. We also have to address the economic issues, because it's just part of the system. And we can't just, this is so bad. It is bad. It is, but that's not going to fix it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that was another, really poignant takeaway for me, listening to the panel discussion after the fact, was the idea that, like, look, we're going to have to spend more money. We're going to have to invest in our protection, and, and really look at you know, the cost of doing business, the cost of validation, the cost of verification, and some of those things that ensure, you know, quality participation, and then also the cost of incentivizing properly to up engagement. Like if we want to fight this issue, we have to fight it. And I think again, another thing that was, you came right out and said, like, we're going to have to sacrifice some margin. And the panel companies are going to have to sacrifice some margin. Like that's what's going to happen. There has to be a financial solve. Anyway, I thought that was really important to hear, and, you know, buckle up to companies that might need to start just recognizing they'll have to pay a little more.
Yep. Yes, we'll have to find our efficiencies and margin in other ways, which technology continues to allow us to do.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be at the cost of the humans. If we want the human input, that's where our investment dollars need to go. And on increasing the impact of the insights function, the process, that human process, I encourage everybody to rethink the financials on that. And that's probably actually a decent segue, since we're talking about engagement.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's go there. What you want to lead this one?
Oh, well, the humane AI pin that we
so another follow-up from last week, right? Because we knew the announcement was coming, but now we have seen it. So we'll share the link if you haven't seen it. But it's cool, right? Go ahead.
It is. So you know, we've talked in the past. Yes, I bought Google Glass and hated it. You know, it was like, no, this is never going to work. I have a feeling this technology could be the cell phone disruptor. If you haven't seen a video, look at it. It is a pin that you wear. It has all the functionality.
Like right here, like just a little white square. Yeah. I mean, it's not the most fashion forward thing. However,
it's not, but it's easy. It's driven by AI, by generative AI. It's a whole new operating system. We'll touch on the other implications of that here in a minute, but this is one that we shouldn't dismiss. Because you can just say, read that text, and it can project onto your hand. So you can I'm sorry, you're not able to see me. You can put if the pin is here, it can project out onto your hand, which is there. And you can just say, hey, read me that text, or you can say, play me this music, or hey, take a photo. You know, and you can just talk to it. Yes. And that's the thing that we need. So hypothetically, right, if we have a disruptive new technology that emerges that is a challenger to the screen, the form factor, right? Think about that from a research process.
Yeah.
We went from telephone, from voice and print.
Yep.
And we merged that without the voice onto a screen.
Yeah.
This technology, arguably, even though it still has screen functionality on your hand, right?
On your hand.
On your hand, but it is primarily voice.
Yeah.
And think about the form factor implications for market research for that. And we can go as researchers, we can say, oh, wow, we're just going to make people use the screen. Well, that's all well and good.
Yeah.
Oh, to say that, but we had to adapt to mobile because of the form factor.
Yeah.
And if this catches on, and my gut tells me that it will.
Yeah.
So I think that it has potential to take off as quickly as the iPhone did.
Yeah.
Which, if you remember correctly, we're talking a few years.
Yeah.
So, and if that happens,
I'm anxious to see, some of those early adopters, just get it and get started and show us results. I'm sure that's, what's going to be coming up next. So we'll be tracking that space because it's
yes. So and we're just going to have to rethink the form factor component of the research process, and we're going to have to start. And I encourage everybody to start thinking about it, because if it's not this device, it will be another.
Yeah. Do you remember when for a while there, with Qual, I'm sorry, I sometimes forget that you weren't just Qual in my world with me, but remember when we were trying to get our heads around 360 cameras on the table in a focus group room, for example, and I wonder what the camera is actually like. I wonder if it can, I wonder if the camera is a moving one, or if it's just a single shot, or if it does a pano. Sorry, it's not my mic, but could you imagine if it does the whole it takes all of it in front of you, anyway, I don't know.
Why wouldn't it? I mean, think about the cameras we have on our phones now that you can do the panoramic shots. Here would be my default assumption from a technology standpoint. Everything that a phone can do in terms of sensors, cameras, yada yada yada. There's no reason at all that these types of devices won't be able to do it all, but the
Yeah.
operating system is radically different. The command system is not, it is talking, it is not necessarily pressing. And as we engage with consumers to participate in research, that form factor changes. We're going to have to adapt and do that. And that's probably, so check out that video. Let's segue, because the other big thing this week was the OpenAI conference. And they changed the game on their own developers.
But I also want to point out, like, it was pretty cool because when it started, you know, and Sam Altman walks out, I'm like, oh, it's like Steve Jobs. It's just a different man now.
Right.
And he came out in the same way with the same style of talking about, here's what I'm going to announce. And I was like, I see what they're doing here. And it was believable, incredible. And people were, you know, really paying attention to what he had to say, obviously, about GPT-4 Turbo.
Yep.
You know, faster, better, cheaper.
Yes.
Right?
And he built an app with voice commands.
Yep.
Right there on stage.
Yeah.
So, and they launched an ecosystem. And that's the thing that ties back into the idea of the pin, right? So, so we now have the emergence of a tech ecosystem, just like Apple and just like Google, and based solely on generative AI, but with the ability for anybody, to if you just kind of get the prompt component right, to build new apps and technologies.
Right.
The ability to create millionaires globally, I think that's awesome, right? Think about your app store, right? A lot of those app makers make a buttload of money.
Yeah.
And it become very successful. We're going to see a whole new system of companies emerge doing that, including research companies. So I encourage, if you're a buyer, encourage your suppliers to start experimenting with this. And if you're a supplier, you cannot afford to ignore this. You cannot. So even if the humane pin doesn't take off yet, something else will. But this ecosystem of apps being developed off of generative AI, that will change things. They will be as ubiquitous as every other piece of technology that we have in no time. Like literally, think about the course of how we've gone. Right? We're a year into this now, and think of where we're going to be next year. So,
and I was just speaking to somebody, actually, my Wire mentee, who has taught herself some basic coding in the past year to kind of layer onto her skills. This was something she was interested in, and she then said, there was something she wanted to do in an app that she wants to build, and she asked ChatGPT for that assist for this one thing. She's like, hey, can I have a you know, I'll make it up, but imagine like a dancing cat on my landing page or whatever. And she asked it to write code so she could put a dancing cat on her landing page, and it did, and it worked. And she was like, oh, now wait a minute. Now this is just a self-taught coder, somebody who's picked up coding this year only, and is able to interact with GPT to get her skills to a level that, you know, very well-educated people are already at, but she closed that gap pretty quickly with the assist of GPT. So I thought that was incredibly cool. And, you know, maybe we're all not out there, you know, just developing dancing cats on their landing pages. However, we are developing things all the time in this industry. And that's what you have to pay attention to, is how easy it will be for people to knock it out of the park with some pretty cool platform work.
Absolutely. And we, you know, we should always, we're trying to be the voice of caution as well. All this is amazing and cool, and the implications are profound. And there's still challenges, right? There's copyright, there's IP, and there's lots of stuff to be worked out through all of this. It's the wild, wild west still. But, you know, if we use that analogy, we've just gone from, you know, from the rifle, the musket, to the 6-shooter, to the Gatling gun. Right. I mean, these are game-changing technologies, rapidly changing everything that we do. And this isn't hype, guys. It's truly not. I want to encourage our audience, pay attention to this. This is not, sci-fi hype. This is sci-fi reality with tons of money going behind it.
Well, and if your brand side and your procurement department is still being really hesitant, I thought that was an interesting thing in this release about this copyright shield, where they're like pretty much saying, well, if you're one of our customers, we're going to protect you. And that I thought was really interesting because they are shoring up people's fear of liability and consequences if you're a customer of this ecosystem in their own. So that I thought would be really interesting for procurement professionals who are like, oh well, I don't know, we don't want to take on that liability. Well, apparently Microsoft is confident enough that they're going to be able to lock it down for you. So I thought that was really interesting.
It really is. I don't know if we'll make sure we include the link, but the announcement was from Microsoft, Google, and OpenAI to put a liability shield in front of all their developers, primarily because copyright and IP issues, as those are still being worked out, to say, don't worry about it. We're going to cover you. We will legally defend you.
Yeah. I know.
Wow.
I know, right? Legally defend you. Yeah, good stuff. Right. Good stuff. So, all right. Speaking of AI, I really loved this. We'll share it with you also, the links for this CB Insights download, and they had a webinar, and you can request a webinar for them to walk you through their download. Of course, they're really happy about that, but it's a generative AI Bible, ultimate guide to the Gen AI disruption. And, at first I was like, oh, another report on all things Gen AI. And then I looked at it and I'm like, oh, wow, this is comprehensive, and that's the way they do things. I understand that. But, I just think that there was so much in there, super meaty. I don't even know where to start with some of our notes here. Just they talk about the, hundreds of startups and the investors flocking. Really interesting. I don't know where you want to go with all that we can talk about in that report, but it was good stuff.
No, really, fundamentally, it's a shout out. If you don't follow CB Insights, you really should. They have just been following them for years. If you need to understand a market and the players in the market, it's not a replacement for Crunchbase and those things. They're kind of complementary, but they're just really, really good at doing kind of market mapping, understanding who's playing, and looking at the kind of core financial drivers behind it. And they do it in a very entertaining way as well.
What we mean by that is the cover. An example of what we mean by that is the cover of this report is like my favorite fake picture, which was the Pope, who I adore, in a puffer jacket, like the one that went viral. Like, I'm like, I love that they're like, hey, let's just lean into the fun of this.
They do.
Because that picture was iconic, and I should probably have it printed out and framed because I like it so very much. Anyway, go ahead. That's the entertainment they bring.
Yes. And they do this for all categories, right? I think they have a particular strength in fintech and in tech overall, but in this particular one, again, it goes back to the point before. We cannot dismiss this as, it's still early stage. When you see at this point the billions and billions of dollars, probably closing in on trillions at this point.
Amazing. It's really amazing to look at.
Right. The money that's flown into it, the companies that are being started, the technologies that are all being developed. This is in the ecosystem that is rapidly emerging. This it is transformative. And yes, there's the adoption curve. We won't ignore that. But we've had massive periods of rapid adoption in the past that we have lived through. The one I always think about was the advent of social media and mobile devices, roughly at around 2008, at the same time. And boom. And this is so far indicating that everything is going faster than that ever did. So it's not here to, the sky is falling, anything like that. That's not what I mean. But we need to start aggressively leaning into pursuing these solutions and exploring that. I can tell you that I was on a call with one of the largest research companies in the world this week. That to be careful. But
I was gonna say, I'm curious, but we can't probe. We're not going there.
No. But they're very much leaning into the implications of AI across data collection, across respondent sample, synthetic sample. And this is a company that, they are the gold standard research company. So, right. And So they're very much focused on that idea of validation, as they should be, and as we all should be. But
Yeah.
but I encourage you not to wait. In order to validate, we have to experiment.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone
Well, and
should
it
be
says
doing
in this TV Insights report too, one of the things I made a note of is execs are demanding their tech vendors keep up with these advances and these opportunities. They are demanding it.
Yes.
So it's like if you fall behind in this and you're not paying attention to this, you will not have the same worth that these execs are going to foresee. They need this. They are counting on it. The report refers to it as a race.
Yep.
And you will not be helping them win if you are not helping them in this capacity.
Yep. I know we have another topic to get to, but I want to just put that in context just a little bit for everyone.
Yeah.
By no means do I envision a future where we do not do face-to-face or intercepts. I mean, mail is still done. There will always be use cases where the tried and true methods and approaches of the past are still the most appropriate thing to do. Always.
Yep.
But when we are engaging with consumers, we must meet them where they are.
Yeah.
And when these technologies are being pushed, because there's money behind them to push them, to transform a fundamental part of human lives, which is how we interact with technology, the devices we use, the operating system, the form factor, all of those things, and the barriers to entry are decreasing because of the ease of implementation of the technology. It doesn't matter what we think about, well, this is the best way to do it. Okay, maybe it is. But if nobody does it, if nobody will engage with us because we're not meeting them, it doesn't frickin' matter, guys. So we have to start thinking now.
It's so interesting. So I was just reminded when you were saying that of, when you had to interact with customer service or something like that, and many of them started to be like, press 0 to reach an operator. And then when companies didn't do that and you found yourself shouting at your phone like, operator, operator.
I sold IVR early on in my career and I hate it.
So like we're shouting, we're like, we demand, I want to be able to reach the damn operator. Some people are doing that for me. I want you to be doing that for me too. Anyway, so I just took this little mental vacation to this analogy space of, when people start to demand, this is what I want from you because other people are doing it. If you don't do it, anyway.
Yeah. And all that, it's the opportunities there are amazing, right? I mean, I think the future is incredibly bright with all of this.
Yeah.
But we're going to have to adapt, and we need to adapt now because things are just moving faster than we've ever seen them move before.
Yeah. And I mean, isn't there something incredibly appealing about being in the insights industry right now, because companies will need to learn about consumer behavior. You think about me yelling at my phone for, to reach an operator, but companies are going to need to learn what consumers are expecting in terms of AI for those products and in those industries. The report talked about financial services, retail, insurance, and some very, direct to consumer and actually probably B2B also use cases for AI. But the researchers get to figure out, how are people, regular human beings, dealing with this? That's some great research opportunities, like great usability work, but also just, great consumer behavior studies that could come out of this. Like that's good, fun stuff.
Remember on that the panel that we were talking about earlier, I shared a story of my horror story of bad sample and the impact. And that was doing work for Alcatel-Lucent for 3G and connected devices back in 2008. Because we needed to understand consumer and B2B, perception of these emerging technologies back then. So to your point, yes, there's just so much opportunity here. But we need to get our heads wrapped around it. All right, we've got one more, and I think there actually is a through line here on this next topic as well. So
there always is. There is. So this is a pretty cool report that actually, somebody had shared with us the press release for it. So StrawberryFrog and Dynata partnering on a study. And the study was about the core driver of U.S. employee happiness engagement and retention. And it was all about meaningful work. So right off the bat, I think that's something interesting to all of us, right? Like, Lenny and I find meaning in our work, right? Even just being here. So I loved one of the findings in here that they labeled the great shrug. 2 out of 3 workers are either unfulfilled, checked out, or fed up. And they also use words like apathetic, restless, ambivalent. And I'm like, yeah, that's a great big shrug, right? I just thought that was so interesting. And I'm so glad there are studies out there about that kind of a thing, right? That everybody in our profession can kind of think about and ponder what's your interaction. Are you that person? Are you managing that person? Is that person in your workplace? Are those people your clients? I don't know. I loved that. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and all that, we don't have time to unpack the generational and age, there's so many differences around all of that. But fundamentally, that idea of, as humans, we want to find meaning and value in what we do, whether you're like my dad growing up, you may end up being a ditch digger, but be the best damn ditch digger there is, right? Make every ditch a work of art, and that was tried and true wisdom.
For a generation. And that's the interesting part. Like, that's really tried and true for a generation that was important. Somebody today, kind of newer to the workplace might be, how does that ditch serve the world?
Sure.
And help me understand why that particular ditch is important, because I'm not really motivated to take care of it if it's not serving some purpose.
Yep.
And I think the mindful thoughts, or whatever you call that kind of mindful deliberation of, is there purpose in my work, is something that every company needs to pay attention to. So, I mean, we can pat ourselves on the back and say, in the insights industry, we are ultimately meeting consumer needs, right? Like at some level, researchers are helping brands deliver better products and services to people, addressing pain points and all that. And I used to find great value in my work around that, knowing that hopefully I was going to meet some consumer needs out there, and human needs and individual needs, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know. I just think this whole thing, read this report. We'll share that link too. Watch the webinar about it and see how it's relevant to you personally, because you might see yourself in it. You might see your staff in it, coworkers.
Yep. Yeah. And I think the same, and here's the through line. It's the same point we were making before. It doesn't matter whether as a business leader or owner or manager or whatever, whether I like it or agree or think that it should be a different way.
Yeah.
If that is irrelevant, reality is, the world is changing, and we must meet the world where it is going.
Right.
That doesn't mean that we can't influence some things, and we could all go off on, different aspects of change and how, whether it's good or bad. Yeah. But we damn well better engage.
Yeah.
And do that in a way that is productive, and it's a win-win scenario for all, or else we wind up not having respondents, not having employees, not having a company. Right. I mean, yeah.
I know. It's really, I keep thinking of like the phrase that I say all the time, like, it is what it is, like, get to acceptance. Because you're not changing kind of the rising tide, but get on your damn surfboard and figure out how to stay afloat, because it's it's here whether you like it or not. It's like all of these forces, and they talk in this report about, kind of, this all started with the pandemic, when people were reevaluating work in general, and people joining the workforce post-pandemic, like they're not playing the same way we used to play. And just like we didn't play the same way our previous generations played. So, it's important to know.
And these have broad implications, because we live in an interconnected systemic world. This, it just does. Everything is connected. The butterfly effect, right? And
I know, it's all connected. It's all connected. Think of a million sci-fi shows right now. What was that one? I think it's like Manifest that was on recently. It was like they were always saying it's all connected. Anyway.
Well, and soon we'll be able to map that out on our pins with the light and move all
Right,
that like they
right.
do on those
And
shows.
yeah, projecting holograms, Anyway, my goodness gracious. Look, it's 30 minutes in already. We have got to settle down sometimes. I think we're going to wrap up early, and yet here we are.
It's all right. 30 minutes is our max. We promised
Yep.
that to our audience. So, but we covered everything we were going to. And
we did. I know it was ambitious today. So
it
thank
was.
you for listening. Thank you for, just being present for us, for sharing these things. Again, email us, theexchange@greenbook.org. We're happy to kind of see what you're seeing out there as Lenny and I continue to scour our sources to bring you what's hot. So
absolutely. And we'll talk next week.
We will talk next week. Have a great one, everybody. Have a good weekend, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.